So in the summer of 2004, Deanna and I got married. We actually had two weddings, a big extrovert wedding and a little introvert wedding. The extrovert wedding was kind of like a music festival / wedding. We had a ball, and as soon as we had hugged everybody and had a little bit of wedding cake and such, we headed off for our rather unconventional honeymoon at a Spanish language immersion school in Guatemala. I think the idea first came up as a joke. A friend of Deanna's had recently done a language immersion thing in Guatemala, and we heard about it right around the time we were trying to figure out what to do for the honeymoon. And one of us said to the other one, well, we could do that for our honeymoon. And I don't even remember which one, but one of us suggested it, and the other one said, well, how serious are you? It was a wonderful experience. We went to Probigua Language School in Antigua, Guatemala. It's a great school. Each of us had a private tutor. If the weather was nice, we'd study outside in the courtyard, and we actually worked fairly hard, but that's because we were having a lot of fun. We stayed with the family, and it didn't take long to feel like we were actually part of that family, and they were very welcoming and delight to be with. And of course, playing with children is a wonderful way to learn a language. We got some pure vacation time in, too. We went up to see the Mayan ruins in Tikal. That was just astounding. I think probably my favorite part of that, as cool as the temples were, was the monkeys. There were wild monkeys running around in the trees, and they were just right there above you, you know. This is not in a zoo. And then we headed back to Antigua for the part of the trip that we really were not expecting. Probigua builds libraries and computer labs for Guatemalan kids with the proceeds from their language school. So students at the language school often get to visit the schools for Guatemalan children and deliver computers or paint or wherever they're working on that day. I got sick and missed the field trip that Deanna got to go on, and I was really disappointed, so I talked my teacher into taking me to visit another school up in Milpas Altas, which is in the mountains near Antigua. The principal showed me the classrooms, and I met a bunch of cute kids and gave out some pencils I'd brought with me, and we had a big time. They're overflowing with students there, so they're using an abandoned building down the road as extra classroom space. It's quite bare, as you can see, but they're doing good work with what they have available. The principal showed me around the whole school, showed me all the classrooms and his office and the well and even the bathrooms. And he explained that he had a dream for the school to run water from the well over to the bathrooms, which, of course, sounds like a very good idea. But he said it was financially out of range. I asked him how much it would cost, and he said about 1,000 quetzales. And I did the math in my head and realized this was $125 that we were talking about. And when he said that, the little hairs on my arms stood up. You know, there's just so much that you want to change in the world, and you feel like you can't. And when he told me that, I thought, well, you know, it's a small one, but I can fix this. We looked at the little closet where they make lunch for the kids every day. The government pays 10 cents per child per day for school lunch. And so they use that to make tortillas by hand from scratch, and they cook beans on this butane stove right here. The principal also told me that he had a long-term goal to build a small kitchen, and I asked him about the pricing for that, and he said it would cost the equivalent of about $850. What I learned on this trip is that the Guatemalan government only pays for teachers' salaries and the tiny school lunch program. It doesn't pay for anything else, not the power bill, not the building, not textbooks, which is why there aren't any textbooks in Guatemala. And the 4 teachers in this school of 218 students are making about $125 a month. So the community has to raise the money for the school, and we're talking about a country where a significant portion of the population is living on less than $1 a day. I was tempted just to leave a check with him for $1,000, but I had to think about that a little bit and admit to myself that that money actually already belonged to Visa, and it might not be completely responsible to write that check. So that was, you know, I was kind of stuck in this quandary of how to respond to this. And then in thinking about it, the light bulb went on above my head, and I realized, you know, what I do for a living is tell people stories and sing them songs. if I told people about this project, they might want to chip in. So I came home and I did just that. I started to tell people about the school. And the first 3 concerts I did back in the States were all 3 tiny shows. But I told each show about this school, and they gave me the $1,000 for the school, just in those 3 concerts. I was just thrilled, and I got on the phone immediately and booked another plane ticket back to Guatemala for a few weeks later as soon as I could get away. So off I went again. Deanna and I talked about it before I went back, and we decided that we really shouldn't stop there. It was just too easy and it felt too right on this first project not to keep it up. So when I went back, I scouted a few other projects, and a short version of the story is that we put together Peg Partners, Inc. to do this work. We've now applied for our 501c3 nonprofit status, and we have an excellent board of directors. You can see how high-stress the board meetings are here in my dining room. It's a small, all-volunteer organization. We're not trying to build UNICEF here, and we're intentional about keeping it small because we want to be able to absorb the overhead. We've set it up so that all donations go 100% to the projects, unless people designate the gifts otherwise to go for administration. So people know right where their money's going, and they know it's not going for glossy advertising, it's going right to the projects. And we've now done several other projects, all of which originated with ideas from the communities we're working in. We've helped the little village of Pachach build a computer lab that the village children can use for free. Adults pay a small fee so the project can be self-sustaining. And this is a computer lab in an adobe house with no plumbing in the middle of a cornfield, where they cook outside over an open fire. So it's just mind-blowing to walk in and find this little computer lab. We've also built a small preschool building in another village, Sanchach. This is Cecil Bothwell, a board member, showing off the almost finished building on my 3rd trip down. They had been renting a room so tiny that it would only hold about 14 4-year-olds, and there were 40 more in the village who couldn't go to the preschool because there was no room. This preschool is in the area where the worst of the flooding was last fall that made the international headlines. We were there just a couple of weeks after the mudslides for that 3rd trip, and it was incredibly poignant that we happened to be there on All Saints' Day. Dia de las Almas is a very important holiday in Latin America when people honor their dead. Nino Tacun, the community leader who organized this preschool project, is walking with me across the mud here in this shot. And it's almost too much to process that the mud that we're walking on has about 500 people in their homes beneath it, many of whom Nino knew. The incredible thing about this trip was that several people and organizations who knew we were going down got in touch to send medical supplies with us, and we ended up taking several $1,000s worth of meds to this village. That was pretty incredible because we're working with schools, we're not even in that line of work, but because we were going, we were able to partner on that. And that was really a bright ray of sun in a pretty bleak landscape. That and the fact that about 2 months later, the new preschool opened with 60 kids in it, just a few hundred yards from here. Guatemala is geographically closer to my house in North Carolina than Seattle is, but it's worlds away. And very few children go to school past 6th grade in Guatemala. Child labor is the norm, it's not the exception. Illiteracy among Mayan women runs about 50%. There are a lot of people doing really good work down there, Mayans and Guatemalans of various kinds and foreigners. And we're trying to bite off one little piece. We've chosen education because education is really a piece of all the changes that need to happen. The political changes, the economic changes, the social changes. So we're taking small steps. And it's really amazing to see the huge results. And it's empowering. I welcome people to get involved with PEG, of course, but I'm also trying to encourage people to work on their own projects. Don't be afraid to do the thing that's in front of you. And above all, don't let anybody tell you can't change the world. The fact is, you can't be in the world and not change it. Everything you do changes the world. It's just a question of which changes you're going to make.